Question number 11, Dr Megan Woods.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. When he said "someone told me" in his answer to oral question 12 on the 29th of October 2014 regarding the transfer of information from himself in his capacity as party leader to himself as Prime Minister, who was that person?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
You got me. I did it.
Supplementary question, Mr
Order.
Speaker.
Supplementary question, Dr Megan Woods.
Given the Ombudsman has previously ruled in relation to the divide between party leader and Prime Minister that distinguishing between information generated in one capacity or another is primarily a matter of fact and can be established in the circumstances of a case, what are the facts and circumstances that distinguish his communications with Cameron Slater as being undertaken as party leader rather than as Prime Minister?
Mr Speaker,
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The nature of those discussions, and Mr Speaker, it's pretty clear. If you want to go and have a look at Jonathan Hunt's ruling, he makes it quite clear the Prime Minister is answerable for any statements made as Prime Minister, but the Prime Minister is not answerable for actions taken in non-ministerial capacity, whether as leader of the opposition or leader of a political party. And I fondly remember Helen Clark making that distinction to this House for a very long period of time in relation to taxpayer money that was used for a Labour Party pledge card.
Supplementary question.
Order. Hang on. Order. Supplementary question, Dr. Order. Supplementary question, Dr Megan Woods.
What were the facts and circumstances that meant he decided that the Honourable Maurice Williamson was acting as a minister when he called police regarding Don Walu, even though the former minister claimed he was acting in his capacity as a National Party MP?
Mr Speaker,
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It's a determination that I make in relation to someone's capacity to hold a ministerial warrant, and a ministerial warrant is held by a member at the pleasure of the Prime Minister. It's got nothing to do with the demarcation line.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Dr Megan Woods.
When Judith Collins talked with Cameron Slater while she was a minister, was she acting in her role as a minister?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, you'll have to ask her.
Supplementary question.
Order. I want to assist the colleague to my left. Supplementary question, Dr Megan Woods.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Given that he has implied that he has discussed with ministers their interactions with Cameron Slater, as stated in written question 7441, how did he have discussions with ministers not in his capacity as Prime Minister?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I don't have that particular question in front of me, but Mr Speaker, it's quite clear, so I can't repeat the question I wrote, but it is quite clear that it's possible, in fact it happens all the time, for a person in my position to hold a variety of different authorities. One is as Prime Minister, one is as leader of the National Party, one is as MP for Helensville, and one is as an individual citizen. That is exactly what Helen Clark said. And the reason that Megan Woods has been put up to answer these questions is no person who was around when Helen Clark was here would do that. You are the full person.
Order.
Point of order, Speaker.
Order. I'm just assisting the member to get some silence before I hear the point of order. Point of order, Right Honourable Winston.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave in regard to the Prime Minister's first answer, to table the Sigmund Freud 1921 thesis on the mental condition of people who talk to themselves.
And we're not about to waste time by putting that leave. Question. Order. Question. No, I've dealt with that matter.
I was just going to advise the member that's some of the best conversations I have.
Order. I've dealt with that matter. Question number 12, Todd Barclay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order.